What's up, guys? Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. We're 3 weeks out exactly from the NFL draft, and there's all kinds of excitement related to that event, or at least there would be if anybody was talking about it. One of the crazy things about this whole Aaron Rodgers, whatever word you want to use to describe it, I choose fiasco, debacle, mockery, but I'm sure others have different terminology for it who might not share that viewpoint, is that it seems like, or it feels like it's just buried the draft. Like it's not a real thing. You know, it's just going to sneak up on us one day. It's a really, really, really big event. And it's a really, really big event in the context of, well, kind of what I'm talking about with today's title to the episode, Posing versus Planning. I had somebody, this was on our website, DK Pittsburgh Sports, earlier today, put in the comments, they said, how is it that you can challenge, meaning me, that you can challenge the Pirates to go all in and to be all in, and then when the Steelers do it, you're like, nah, don't go all in. The first thing to do in any conversation where you're comparing somebody to the Pirates is just hard stop. Okay, don't do that. There's nothing worthwhile that's going to come from that conversation. Just nothing. Just the Pirates are what the Pirates are. Okay. What you do is you compare the Steelers to somebody else, another entity that knows what it's doing. And in town, we have one of those in the Penguins. We have the Penguins not saying to their fans year after year after year, we're just going to go all in. We've got Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang. Doesn't matter how old they are. Doesn't matter, what their trajectories are right now. We are just going all in. And you know what? Every summer before the Penguins get to camp and hit the ice, everybody would be like, well, or not. Yeah, go for it. Woo. Talk about the Stanley Cup. It doesn't get anywhere. It doesn't get anywhere. What you want to plan toward as a sports thing is winning it all. And what the Steelers plan toward is the next day of their existence. What the Steelers plan toward is utilizing everything within their control, within their power, that's right there in front of them to win the next game that's right there in front of them. That's why they don't get anywhere, just as the Penguins didn't get anywhere when Kyle Dubas came along as general manager 2.5 years ago, and he said, listen, I'll give you guys one last run. He went and got Erik Karlsson. He went and got a bunch of guys. He spent all the way up to the cap and did all this other stuff. And it fell on its face. It didn't work because it wasn't what the Penguins need, Ed, nor is it what they need now toward winning all of it, toward winning a 6th Stanley Cup for the city of Pittsburgh. That's the difference between posing and planning. You can say, we're in to win the Super Bowl. That's our goal. Omar Khan just said it this week in Palm Beach. Our goal is to win the Super Bowl. To win the Super Bowl this year. Well, dude, respectfully, you don't have the roster. So what are you doing? Why not make moves that actually lead toward a Super Bowl, even if those moves put you in a spot where maybe your next year or two aren't as awesome? Why not be candid with everybody about that, including, incidentally, your top players? You don't go and tell TJ Watt and Cam Hayward, hey, you're going to stink for the next year or two, any more than the Penguins are going and telling Sid and Gino that. They're not. They're saying, hey, listen, this is the roster that we have right now within this phase of what we're building. If you perform well with it, if things really start to click, get great goaltending, get better defense than anybody's expecting, all right, we'll go ahead and add to it. And the Steelers can do the same thing. But what you can't do is just pretend or pose that every year is some sort of Super Bowl opportunity. It isn't. That's not going all in. It's doing the exact opposite of that. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Chris Halleck on what I think should be a pretty fun episode of this show, and you'll see why.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Welcome back to Double Shot of Steelers. I'm joined now by Chris Halleck, who is also being welcomed back after flying home from Palm Beach, Florida, where he was covering the NFL annual meeting. What's going on, Chris?
Oh, nothing much, man. It was a fun week, productive week. It always is at the NFL annual meeting. Actually, probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, off-season event to cover, just because of the number of people that are there to talk to. And when I say number of people, I mean number of people that have a little bit better idea of what's going on. Executives, people who are in front offices, not just scouts. Like scouts are good to talk to as well, and that's good for the combine, but some people that are a little bit more plugged in.
Now, before we get into football, let's do a little bit of football, because I know you happen to be into the beautiful game as well. And Sasha Steele comes in from Germany, where the Steelers today announced a partnership with Borussia Dortmund. That is, they play, for anybody who doesn't know what Bundesliga is, that's Germany's top division and one of the best divisions in the world. Yep. And also happens to be the team that Christian Pulisic played for, right?
Yeah, he used to play
for first went over. He's from Pennsylvania. He's the top American soccer player, any position.
Very much.
Unfortunately, by a mile.
yeah, by a mile. No, he's a really great player, and as a Chelsea fan, I wish things would have worked out between Pulisic and Chelsea, but it didn't, and he's doing pretty good at AC Milan right now. But that's a really cool partnership, and obviously we know the Steelers' ties to Ireland, not just because of the Rooney family, but also obviously the Ireland game coming up this season. But last year the Steelers were granted a license to be able to pretty much market and do developmental and different programs and stuff like that in Germany. And I think this is just, a product of that, getting to partner with a really like a top, I'm going to call it football. Sorry, people, a top football club over in Germany, the second most decorated behind Bayern Munich. And it's really cool. I mean,
it's neat.
They both wear black and gold too. Like it's a really cool partnership.
I didn't even realize that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Dortmund's black and gold too.
One of the things that's going to be visible to us, very visible to us, when Chris and I both go to Ireland to cover the Steelers in Dublin this fall, is the percentage of the fans who will be there wearing black and gold, who will have come from American military bases in Germany, is overwhelming. That was my experience in covering the Steelers in London in 2013, was that every other person I'd ask was like, oh yeah, I came from, Ramstein or whatever the various bases were. And they hadn't even been to Pittsburgh in like 20, 30, some cases 40 years. They were military lifers who just could not believe that their team was playing on their side of the planet. And it's a surreal thing here. Chris, I know you were able to pick up the opening segment there. I'm talking about the posing versus planning. And I want to get you on that before we start talking about the NFL annual meeting as well, because there is a thing. It's through the Steelers organization. They all say, what's the goal for the season? It's to win the Super Bowl. And everyone goes, wow, isn't that awesome that they do that? Is it though? Is it awesome that they do that?
Well, I think the NFL is different from every other league. I like to call the NFL currently a year-to-year league. And I think the more and more this game continues to develop, the more and more it becomes that. The Texans are a really good example of that. They went from being bad to one coaching change, and obviously that head coach, brought in his own staff, and one offseason via free agency in the draft, and they became AFC, not just the AFC South champions, but like for the foreseeable future, I don't see any other team in that division unseating them. And one offseason, that's what it seemed like it happened. And so I do think that teams can get stuff done in 1 year. Now, it's hard for the Steelers to get that done this year because the quarterback that you want to have is not available right now. And that's the quarterback of the future. It's not there. No, you can try in the draft. Sure. You can try in the third round if Jalen Milroe's still there and see if he pops off. You could try Will Howard, who has a lot of intangibles to like. He just won a national championship. He's a really good leader, blah, blah, blah. But there's obviously some, concerns with what he might be able to do on the field. And so it doesn't look like that quarterback is going to be available to them in this year's draft. So it just doesn't look like that's going to be able to be found. And when you don't have a quarterback, it's really hard to win. That was one of the reasons why the Texans turned things around.
Yeah, that was the difference.
Yeah, that was a big part of that.
Yeah, and we were in Houston, of course, early on in CJ's run, and I mean, you could see right away. Yeah. There was just something different about the Texans, and it was largely related to just the poise that he oozed coming out onto the field. You're like, this is a rookie. Get out of here. Yeah. But you could see it. And this is one of the reasons why. Where was CJ drafted? What pick? I
want to say second overall. I think it was that same year as Bryce Young. Bryce Young was first overall. CJ was second. So yeah, I mean,
you got it. There are some great players that are available up there, and they can make an instant difference. And maybe if we're talking about posing versus planning, we can talk about, Omar Khan collecting these comp picks and possibly trying to utilize them to move up. I don't know if you can give people a bunch of third rounders and fifth rounders to move all the way up.
No, but
generally speaking, those teams will hang on to those picks.
No, but what it does is if you have to part with a first round pick, which if you're going to trade up a bunch, I'll just use the Chiefs example because it's a really good one. When they traded up 17 spots to go get Patrick Mahomes, they traded the next year's first round pick and the current year's third round pick. So if you were to do the same exact thing to also trade up the same number of spots to trade up, let's say from 22 to 5th, then okay, yeah, you're going to be without that first round pick. But if you have all those comp picks and you give away that one of your third round picks and you still have two other ones, the rest of that draft can still be pretty good. That could be that year's draft. That could be the big haul. And knowing that you're going to take a hit the next year, but it's worth it if you get your guy. It's worth it if you get your franchise quarterback for the next decade plus. So that's why you get all the comp picks, because then you have all the ammunition to either move up, or if you do have to use a premium draft pick to move up, which most likely you would, you can still have a good rest of your draft to finish having a good haul.
I have a couple of questions coming in about the owners' meetings here. So we might as well get started on that. Joe comes in and says, hey, Chris and DK. Chris, in reference to the owners' meetings, what was the coolest part of that experience? He says, I hope DK put you up somewhere real nice. We all do our own travel. So if Chris wants to stay in a Red Roof Inn, he can do that. I'm guessing he didn't.
I didn't stay in a Red Roof Inn, but I did not stay in a $300 a night Marriott either.
That's also the correct answer.
I was as frugal as I could be without staying in a place where I'd be, putting myself in danger.
Now, where the meetings are themselves, that's different.
Yeah, it's what's funny about that is like there was, I think it was last year, we got done talking with Omar and we were like, okay, well, we have to head back to our hotels and start writing this stuff. And he goes, you're not staying here.
You're not staying here? Oh, no. God, they're so oblivious to this stuff. We're sports writers. What does he think we're doing?
That was the one in Orlando, and that was at the Ritz-Carlton. I'm like, I'm sorry, no, I'm not staying at the Ritz-Carlton.
We're not.
But no, the coolest part of it is just being with literally, it's like the entire NFL universe is there. It's like all the head coaches, all the GMs, and you end up running into just about every single one of them. And we're talking about throughout the day during the meetings. There's an NFL reception for the media during one of the nights. And, that's a really good time for like socializing and actually getting to talk to a lot of these guys. There's a dinner with the team as well. And, you know, getting to talk with Roger Goodell, you can pretty much ask him, hey, you know, how, you know, from your perspective, how do these meetings go? Blah, you know, you can just have these conversations, and it's cool because you just get a lot of information that just helps better inform you for how to approach even the draft coming up in 3 weeks.
No, that's something that you know was kind of what I was promising for this show, is that we would be talking a little bit about some of the stuff that you picked up on, some of the stuff that you felt here. Nathan asks, for example, Chris, did you get a feeling from the Steelers about what position they might go with in round 1? Now, before you answer that, Nathan has something that he needs to take care of because he's not a member. I see that from the coloring of his lettering here. We're not going to let that go unpunished. What he has to do is to go to dkps.net/join to become a member. And what you don't do it now. I was kidding, because you'll end the video. Put it in the URL, dkps.net/join. What do you think, Chris? Round 1.
I'm still leaning heavily defensive tackle on this. I don't
interior. You want interior?
Yeah. Okay. Interior defensive line. And they weren't bullish on those every time it was asked, whether it was Tomlin or Omar. And I think that's one of the ways that I understand the Steelers don't exactly try to put everything behind a smoke screen or anything like that.
No.
But they also don't exactly completely show their entire hand either. They don't just go, I got a full house that I'm just holding on to right here. But Omar did say, like, we still really emphasize the trenches. And I'm like, that's the answer that I needed right there.
Yeah.
And, that's been a heavy emphasis. And I'm not going to rule out quarterback. I don't think it's going to happen. But really, the way the Steelers operate, the way Omar operates, I wouldn't rule out anything in the first round, to be completely honest. But if you're twisting my arm into one position, it's still defensive tackle.
Yeah, if it were a quarterback, is there anybody that it could be other than Jackson Dart? Could it be Shedeur Falling? I see so many scenarios if Shedeur Falling, so many of them, because what ends up happening is if he isn't taken, like up there at 3 and 4, which I think would be a mistake, but
yeah,
then you have a whole bunch of teams that have no use whatsoever for a quarterback, and that's a falling scenario.
Mm-hmm. That's what happened with Aaron Rodgers whenever he was drafted. I mean, he just kept falling, and the Packers were like, okay, well, we're not just going to let him go. I mean, he fell into our lap. If Shedeur falls to 21, I could see the Steelers pulling the trigger. Because he's the second best quarterback in the class, and I don't think that's really much of a debate, because I think
Cam Ward.
Yeah, Cam Ward's the undoubted number 1. Shadeur's the pretty much undoubted number 2, and then it's a pretty steep drop off to Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe I think the third best. I think Milroe's better than Dart, but that's just me. But
Mr. CJ Jr. says, man, remember when everybody and their mama knew Pittsburgh was going to draft Najee Harris? That was actually, CJ, why I was laughing when Chris said that about the smoke screen, because the Steelers might as well have bought neon advertising to let the entire football world know that they were either, well, in fairness, it was either going to be Najee or Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
Okay. And if they hadn't, if for whatever reason, one or the other was going to be gone, and sure enough, Etienne ended up going with the very next pick.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of those that was extremely transparent, to say the least here. Our man Victory Asher comes in with a $9.99 contribution and says, happy Throwback Thursday, everyone. What are we throwing back to? We're going to talk about how all of Chuck Noll's players were angels. That's one of my favorites.
That's a good one.
They were all choir boys. They did nothing wrong because they feared the Emperor Chaz.
Yeah.
Sorry. Had to do that one here.
No,
Jay Moods says Jay Moods likes Tyler Shuck better than Sanders. Can I admit something here, Chris?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I went down a little bit of a Tyler Shuck rabbit hole yesterday.
I like it.
I saw some dimes. I saw a touch that appeared to me to be uncommon for the college level. You know, I saw they weren't the tightest of spirals. They weren't the most pristine passes, but when I think of college football, because I don't think much of it, it's not a product that I consume. I think of these wobbly, these passes that don't at all look like NFL passes. There's only a handful of guys at the college level who can make them the way that you need to. And I kind of liked it. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I mean, Matt Williamson agrees. Matt Williamson is on the Tyler Shuck train. That's for sure. I do like him a lot too. I actually think, in terms of a floor mixed with a pretty good ceiling, I mean, he's definitely up there. He's a top 5 in this draft for sure. The major thing with Shuck to me is that he can get rattled by pressure way too easily. That's got to improve.
Well, but it can improve.
It can, and we've seen it happen with a number of quarterbacks, including one that's under contract with the Steelers.
And that would be a guy who had the happiest feet in the universe in 2019, and at the same time has no such thing anymore. And that's just Mason Rudolph just found a way to steady himself, to believe in himself, to believe in his linemen. That one to me is a coachable, fixable thing for anybody.
It is for sure. And when you know that this dude's got a legitimate NFL arm and he can make a number of throws and he's got really underrated mobility, there's a reason why a lot of people covering the draft right now think that he's not going to last past the second round, that he's going to be one of the
Shuck,
one of the top.
I could see that. I mean, it's funny now how you see all these quarterbacks who are allegedly getting buried early on in these projections. Now you're starting to see them kind of float into the second round. I've seen a lot of dart, not so much late first round, but early second round.
Yeah.
Jay Mood says here, the throwing angles, the touch, the old man can read defenses. That's right, pal.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about his game. That's why I said of all the guys in this draft, he's one of the most pro-ready quarterbacks, and a lot of that has to do with experience. I mean, with age comes experience, and he has a lot of it. But when you mix that with, like I said, a legitimate NFL arm, underrated mobility, there's a lot to like in his game. I don't know how high his ceiling is. There are definitely other guys with a higher ceiling. I think Jalen Miller has a much higher ceiling, but Shuck is a much, much more safer choice than Milroe. Milroe's a home run swing, like out of your shoes home run swing,
which you can't afford. I'm sorry. I mean, not in this scenario. To me, if this is one of the reasons that when I was initially expressing my opposition to the Aaron Rodgers thing was, give me a room with 3 guys. Yeah. With 3 guys who can be something, including Mason. Okay. Mason's not even 30 yet. Okay. If Mason comes up with his second phase of his career, whatever, and you have 2 young guys with him, then I don't think you can do that with Milroe in this circumstance. Now, that's what I mean with Rodgers. It just, Torsia says playing behind Dan Moore and Kendrick Green will make your feet happy too. Yeah, but that's a great line. But at the same time, Mason was playing behind those guys and he had this cured. Okay, I'm talking about when he had his happy feet. That was back in 2019 before either of those guys were either Moore or Green was here. We're in the fold here. The PEF comes in and says, Chris, is there any word on DeMarvin Leal's status? I'm hoping he can rebound after his injury. I'm gonna just answer the PEF here real quick as the person who has been the most annoying in asking the coaches about Leal, including the head coach, that there's still something there. I don't get the sense from them, Chris. I did beforehand, but then last summer, something seemed to click with 98. And then they took him into the season and they liked some of what they saw. Now, does he have another whole bridge to cross? Yes. But I don't get the sense, like I even was saying last summer, like I don't even know if he's going to make the roster.
Yeah. I am beginning to really kind of think that he's not gonna have a place. Last summer was the way he started training camp. I thought he was gonna have a legitimate chance because he looked really good in training camp early on.
Impact plays.
Yeah, and then it just obviously, injury happened, and it's like it just seems like it's going to be one of those things where he just never gets the chance to really take off. It's like every time he's building up speed to take the jet off on the runway, an engine, just completely blows out and he's not able to get in the air. I have a hard time, especially with how good this defensive tackle class is. I could see the Steelers taking not just one, but even two from this class. It's a really, really good class. Probably one of the best ones we've seen in a long time. And I mean, shoot, man, like this guy's about to go into what is his fourth season already? Fourth.
Leal's fourth. It's incredible, right? Yeah, he hasn't gotten on the field. That's what I mean when I said it's at some point or other. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought that was that's why I was saying it last summer.
Yeah.
There is something else there. And then there's also the school of thought. I don't want to turn this into a Leal show. But there's also the school of thought that they never should have gotten him because he was never a fit for this type of offense. He wasn't that kind of player that they were hoping for coming out of college. You can't reinvent everybody. Not everyone is Lamar Woodley that you can just bring in, or for that matter, Alex Highsmith, where you bring in from a certain system, different type of system, totally different type of system, and say, yeah, but you've got the physical skill set to work with what we're doing in the 3-4. Jay Mood says, I'm loading up on the heavyweights. I'm all for it. Hey, you can't go wrong. Okay. Yeah. If you're, this is one thing you're never going to have anybody complain about is, hey, we got stronger on the defensive line. Oh no. Okay. And you already had Cam performing at an all-pro level, which is never a surprise whenever he's healthy, and he was. And then from there, you lose Lario, obviously, but you got to figure out, to me, the variable in this equation isn't even necessarily who they bring in. It's what are you going to do with Keanu Benton to get the most out of his skill set, as long as we're talking about fit and so forth, because Keanu's not, he's not Casey Hampton. He's not going to be Big Snack fill in the middle.
No, he's not Casey Hampton. I think that's why whenever he was talked about this week at the annual meeting, the versatility factor came up, and they absolutely, it will not surprise me that even regardless of who they draft, if they do go with Kenneth Grant or Derek Harmon or Walter Nolan or any of these top guys in the first round, that Keanu Benton is still going to get first crack at that spot next to Cam Hayward along the defensive line when they're in their nickel defense with the two interior linemen. He will be that guy. He will get first crack at that. They think he's versatile enough to play that. And there's a reason why they drafted, and Tomlin even said it, there's a reason why they drafted him that high. And remember, he was the second of two second-round picks that year, the first one being Porter. They still believe in him. They still like what he can do. He, in 2 seasons, hasn't exactly blown up, but he also hasn't been terrible either. And I think that's one of the reasons why their emphasis so much is on the defensive line, because outside of Cam Hayward as an all-pro, in terms of impact ability, known impact ability, it's not there. It can be there with Keanu Benton, but we haven't seen it yet. Daniel Akawale was a really solid first-year starter last year, but it was his first year as a full-time starter after multiple seasons in the NFL. Like, they just don't have that other really impact guy. And if they can get it with Kenneth Grant or Derek Harmon or any of these guys, then that's the reason why they're looking for it.
And Brian Jonker goes at Carl Dunbar. What the hell has Dunbar done for either Leal or Benton?
Don't.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Carl Dunbar has worked with a lot of guys, and he also works with the edge rushers too. So
yeah, he's in on the TJ and Nick Herbig thing, as long as you're going to, and Alex thing,
and Alex Highsmith, and
they'll all tell you that too,
and Javon Hargrave and Stephon Tuitt. I mean,
those don't count though; just the ones that fail.
Right, exactly. So no, Dunbar's done a lot. He's one of the most respected defensive line coaches in the league for a reason.
He's also awesome.
He is.
I just want to throw that in there.
He is.
He's just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steelers love is with you on this one, Chris. Are you serious? You're going to trash Dunbar? Dunbar is not the problem.
Of all the position coaches to be complaining about on Tomlin's staff, Dunbar is probably the least concerned.
Now, when you hear, one of the things that I take very seriously in either direction when I'm dealing with players, and they're talking about coaches, and of course they have to be careful about it to an extent. Yeah. You don't want to be the guy that looks like you, but listen to when they give you specifics. Okay, don't listen to them just saying, my coach is the greatest, and I really respect my coach. Okay, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But when they say to you something like, hey, I was taught this technique by Coach Dunbar, and I was taught that when I'm going, or even specific matchups, okay, because when you're talking about the line, and especially divisional games, you're facing certain opponents, individual opponents, more than once a year. I want to hear my offensive lineman say to me, hey, here's something I learned about how to handle Trey Hendrickson and this certain thing that he does when he comes to the inside, or here's how to handle Myles Garrett, okay? And I hear so much of that about Dunbar. And can I be a jerk here?
Good.
I hear none of that about Pat Meyer. And I keep waiting for it, okay? And I understand. I like Coach. And I like his demeanor with his players. I like seeing the way he interacts with them. He's passionate about what he does, but I don't see the results, and I don't hear stories like this. Chris, feel 100% free to contradict me or whatever here on this in your own experience.
Yeah, no, I think I've heard some different. And Cody here says no one likes Meyer as a coach. I disagree with that completely.
On the outside, no, yeah. Cody's right about the outside.
well, on the outside, yeah, but on the inside, that is not the feeling. And what I will say, yeah, in terms of like those stories, I haven't heard a lot of those either. But I do know, actually. Now, granted, I did not hear this from a player's perspective, but I heard it from another source that Pat Meyer is the reason why Ryan McCollum is on the team. He pounded the table to keep Ryan McCollum last year. When they were cutting down the 53-man roster, they wanted to cut McCollum, and Pat Meyer pounded the table for him. And McCollum ended up having to start
games. Only play center. I'm sorry, Chris. I just want to throw it out there. Even that's the risk in pounding the table there. Yep. Obviously, let you complete the thought, but that you're pounding the table for someone who can only back up at one spot. Now it turns out Zach Frazier went down, and McCollum came in and was fantastic.
He was very good.
Not good, not very good. He was fantastic.
Yeah, and so whenever that happened. I started asking some people around the organization, and I found that out. I'm like, well, that's that too. And then, during the draft cycle last year, when it became very apparent that they were going to draft a tackle and that they wanted a tackle, that Pat was told, go only look at right tackles. That's all we want is a right tackle. And so he did all the, I won't say all the scouting, obviously, because there are scouts to do the scouting, but he was a big reason why they knew a little bit more about people like Troy Fautano, Talise Fuaga, and some of those other tackles that they ended up liking throughout that process. He was a big part of that. So he plays a bigger role, and he deserves more credit than he's given. But I do understand some of the issues, especially when you look at people like Broderick Jones. Like, you need to see a little bit more development. But I also understand that this is still a really young defensive line. You had 3 rookies last year.
Yeah, offensive, you meant to say. Yeah. Michael Cross says here, he says, I wish we could throw money at Mike Munchak to bring him back. Sometimes, sometimes whenever fans will build up somebody, it can be excessive. It can be larger than life. Yeah. Not with Munch. Munch, we could all see it. Okay. Yeah. He was out there. In the one end, for those of you who go out to St. Vincent College on a regular basis, or you remember the time when Munch was coaching the line does most of its work in one end zone over by the trees at the end of Chuck Noll Field. So they're closer to the fans than any other positional group. So you could actually not just see, but you could hear what Munch was saying. And he had no issues. If he's talking to Marquise Pouncey, he would stop and teach. Okay, think about that. Now, there's an extra dynamic there because Munch also was who he was as a player. Okay, and that will, fair or not, that will command your attention as a professional athlete. Okay, you point to your bust in Canton, and you got some people listening. Okay, Munch would go over such specific things, and these guys to this day, our own Ramon Foster is part of our channel here. Ramon would throw himself in front of a moving train on behalf of Munch. You put all this into this O-line all this draft capital, all this money, and all this everything else here. The last thing you can afford to not get right is the instruction, is the coaching. Go ahead, Chris.
I agree with that 100%. You have to get this right. Now, you're not going to bat 1,000. You would like to, but you're not going to bat 1,000. And maybe Broderick Jones is a swing and a miss. I think this is the sink or swim year for him. But the jury's still out on Zach Frazier. It's a really good start. He was a really good center last year. Mason McCormick, considering where he came from, South Dakota State, as a 4th-round pick and had to start a lot more games than he was expected to, which he was expected to start none, by the way, because James Daniels was the surefire starter. And then Troy Fautanu, obviously the jury's definitely still out on him because he's got to play, after a knee injury. But there's got to be more development, but I also understand there's still room to see if they have something or not.
The best thing of all is when we get all these comments about a quarterback. You're talking about quarterback all the time. Why are we talking about quarterback? And get to talk about quarterback. And then after we don't talk about quarterback hardly at all today, Kick comes in. Can we talk quarterback now?
It's funny, man.
What do you want to say, man? I'm against signing Aaron Rodgers. He's going to sign anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of going with Mason Rudolph as starter and having 2 young guys come in, but there went Milton today. Was traded to where? Where did he go?
Dallas. He went to Dallas.
He's Dak's backup now. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
New England. And what was it? Just like they gave up nothing, right? Like a 5th and a 7th.
No, they gave up a 5th and they got a 7th back in return. But
that's nothing.
Well, but I also thought about that from the Steelers' perspective. I'm like, if they would have done the same trade. Let's just say, for example, they would have had 3 picks in the first 5 rounds this year.
I don't care about that. Get serious about the one position that matters at some point. Start sacrificing other things to throw as many of these guys against the wall. You know what I'm saying, Chris?
But if there are some better, sharper, more aerodynamic darts to throw at the dartboard, then maybe you should pick up those instead. Maybe they just had a certain price that they were like, yeah, we like Milton, but we're not gonna, give up a whole bunch because we feel like we can possibly get somebody better in the draft, even in the 3rd or 4th or 5th round, which I think they can, honestly.
Florida Dave does it right. Florida Dave became a member today. He says, I have nothing to add to the conversation. I just want to see if my name updated. If your name goes, this is on the YouTube live chat format, by the way, it goes from black to green. You have made it, Dave. You have made it. You have elevated yourself above the level of Florida man. Oh, jeez. Last one here. Go ahead.
I got to ask you a question really quick because you go to Florida a lot too, obviously.
Unfortunately.
How often do you see an actual alligator in person when you're in Florida? This became a topic of debate amongst.
No, it's not common. And in the Bradenton, where I am mostly with the spring training facilities, they're very fenced off, Chris, just like the golf courses are. Now, then you see them show up on the golf courses, on TV and whatever. But where the baseball players are, the fields, the complexes are really, really, really fenced off. So I've been going down there since the late 90s. On an annual basis for baseball purposes, and I don't recall that I've seen one.
Okay, because I see them all the time. I saw
the zoo doesn't count. Listen to the boss over here.
Nixon Zoo is not a zoo.
No, it does not count.
I saw 5 or 6 while I was there. Anytime I see a body of water, I just automatically assume there's like 8,000 of them in there.
No, one of the things, Florida Dave says the weather is great. It's not great, Dave. When the weather can kill you once a year, it's not great. Want to know what great weather is? I have this awesome map of the United States. I think I've shown it to Chris, of dangerous weather. Okay, areas that are regularly struck by either, hurricanes, typhoons, even earthquakes, tornadoes, wildfires. Now, unfortunately, prevalent across the country. Right?
Yeah.
You know what city is completely devoid of any color on that map? That would be Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, pal. That's what's known as great weather. Weather that does not kill you. Weather which requires you to store plywood in the back is not great weather.
Yeah,
One week. Go ahead.
I'm not a fan of the Florida weather. Like I've been down there enough. It's too
Awful.
humid for me. It's too
And
humid.
then there's that too here. Craig gets the last word today. He says, let's talk punters. Corliss Waitman did an amazing job last year. Yeah, but finish that one, Chris.
Yeah, Cameron Johnston is expected to be ready to go by training camp, and I can tell you right now, you did not see enough of Cameron Johnston's leg.
Oh my goodness, he's special.
He is. Now, if that leg is healed and he can boom the ball the way he used to, it's not a competition.
And that was his plant leg that got hurt, though, right?
No, it was his kicking leg.
Oh, geez, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, because when it came back down after the punt, and then he got ran into.
Well, here's hoping the best for him on multiple fronts, but I will tip my figurative cap to Corliss Waitman.
He did a great job.
Man, you talk about coming in and a good dude, a team guy, worked his rear end off immediately with Chris Boswell and everybody else that was involved in holding the ball. And just, I cannot say enough good things. One thing you know about Waitman and any punter who does a good job, wherever it is that they are, they will not struggle for work the following season. Waitman is going to be employed somewhere. Don't be weeping for him. All right. Chris, I appreciate the time and everything else. We're going to do one more of these tomorrow, all right?
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the business portion of the double shot of Steelers. And we're going to go through some kindness that was shared in this direction and that began even before we got on today with Vic coming in with a $10 contribution and wishing everyone a nice Thursday. We had Barber come in with one. Barber came in with another one. Barber comes in with another one. These are all fake Barber names. Don't let him fool you. Although Kerry Russell is not. Kerry is authentic from overseas. Always comes in with one every day. Stella Fierce came in with 20. That's appreciated. For anybody who doesn't know what these gift memberships are, people will contribute them, and you can claim one. You don't have to do anything to it. They'll just assign it. YouTube they just assign it to you, but it's temporary. You can only have it for, what is it, like 3 months or something? 1 month. Oh, geez. And then you're out. So it's there, but it doesn't really make you a member. It's just kind of gets you the taste of it and everything. And it keeps us from making fun of you whenever you try to ask us a question. We are now up to 1,838 memberships, according to the boss. Isn't that like 100 more than yesterday?
Kinda, yeah.
Jeez.
62% of the vote.
Oh my God, that's too much math. Too much math. She says we're 62% of the way to our goal here. Actually, now I'm going to test her.
Well, it's 61.
Come on, that's such an arbitrary number. You can't throw that out. Let's see, 1,838 divided by 3,000 equals 61.3. Whoa! You don't get to be the boss by accident, my friends. We appreciate all of you. We're going to have one more of these shows tomorrow. And then, of course, we'll be back next week with a whole nother round of them. We'll have a Ramon Foster show on Wednesday. We are building up toward the NFL draft. We're going to be doing a lot of extra stuff for the draft. And that might be when this membership really starts to kick in, because that's going to give us our first real opportunities to do things like the members only chat, members only live shows. So the place to do that, I'm going to type it up here for you one more time. It's dkps.net. Oh, it's over there on the screen, but I'm going to type it up in comments anyway, just to annoy her. dkps.net/join is the place to go. And you type that into your URL. Okay. And from there, it's like super easy. It's 99 cents a month, and we're going to make it worth it. Steelers Love says, are you planning on any type of draft day special? The answer to that is yes. Whether or not it's contained within Double Shot or the other stuff that we do, I don't know. But we're looking to get Chris involved, Ramon involved, Matt Williamson involved, our whole football staff, and get as much activity going on, as much original reporting and the other stuff that we offer here. Michael Cross says, hang on, Vincent jumps in at the last second with $25 and says, thanks for being part of my daily digest. You and Matt keep things relevant for a content-hungry Steelers fan base looking for something different than the national story. Vince, my brother, I have two things to say to this. One is that we love having Matt. Matt is different than the stuff that we do, and I hope you've picked up on that. Matt is a former NFL scout. He doesn't brag about his background the way I do. Okay. Matt knows what he's doing. Matt obsesses. All he does, this dude, is watch film and video and study these guys. And on top of his scouting background, he's deeply into analytics. Usually those two worlds don't mix. Matt is really, really, really adept at both. We love having him. We love the way people treat that show as it's part of our family, but it's also kind of a separate entity from how he handles things. To your last point, something different than the national story. I can't say this often enough. When you say terms like national media or national reporters, all you're saying is this: they don't cover the team. That's all that means. It's not a higher designation. It's not a lower designation. They're just not here. You just heard Chris tell you now about all the different people that he talked to in Palm Beach. He's down there. He's not talking to them about the Falcons and the Jaguars and whatever. He's only got one focus. That's the Steelers. That's what we do here. We cover the Steelers, and we actually physically cover them. We're on campus. We're in the building. We're talking to their people all the way to the top on a daily basis. Appreciate you, Vincent. Appreciate everybody who checks out Double Shot of Steelers. And again, we'll be back with another one of these tomorrow. Bye-bye.